everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's reading vlog. So this vlog is going to run from the 21st through the 28th, and is going to be focused on Lexie's Readathon. If you don't know who Lexie is, I'll link her channel in the description below, but she has just launched a Patreon, and each season she plans to have a special readathon for her Patreons, and I get to participate, and I'm very, very excited. And she's going to be vlogging about it, which means I can vlog about it, which means I can talk to you about what I'm reading and why I've chosen to pick up these random books that you haven't really heard me talk about because most of them weren't on my TBR. Probably not the smartest choice, but what can you do? So Lexie set up this readathon, so there's two paths. So there's the cozy path and the spooky path, and there's this really cool map that goes along with it. And I've decided to try to do both paths. And Lexie says we can really kind of do it however we want, but I kind of want to follow the prompts. So the starting prompt for both paths is the same, and the end prompt for both paths is the same. So I kind of doubled up on books for that. So the first prompt we had was to read a book about a secret society, or a book that had an atmospheric building. I think that's how it's put. And I picked up The Witch Girl for this by Jan Eldridge because the back said that we're following Evangeline and her witch grandmother who she's learning magic from, and they are called to a creepy old mansion. So I didn't find that the mansion was very spooky or creepy or atmospheric. So I don't really know that this fits the prompt, but we are following Evangeline, who is trying to learn magic under her grandmother, and she's getting worried that maybe she doesn't have magic. And they do end up going to this manor, and while there, they meet the lady of the manor, who is suffering from some kind of illness that the lord of the manor has tried every conceivable avenue and has now resorted to, well, people like Evangeline and her grandmother, even though he doesn't believe in the mystical, mysterious ways. And neither does their son, Julian. And basically, Evangeline and her grandmother have to figure out what's going on with the lady of the manor and see if they can get to the bottom of what is going on. I think I'm giving this book 3.5 stars. I also think it's the first book in a series, and I will be continuing on with the series. I thought Evangeline was a very interesting character, and I loved getting to see her journey throughout this book as she struggled with the idea that maybe she doesn't have magic. And I really enjoyed the bond that her and her grandmother shared and getting to see that kind of play out. I like the magic in this book, and I'm sad that it didn't have the atmosphere that I was looking for, but I still enjoyed it. So it is a series I could see myself continuing on with, though maybe not unless it came out of my jar. Then on the cozy path, we'll start there first. I had to read a book that had fall colors on the cover, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'll insert the prompt here. And I chose to read Watch Hollow by Gregory Finaro. This is a fall cover for me, so I won't be talking about what the book is about. If you're new to my channel, every season I pick 5 books whose covers remind me of the season and then post a video talking about why their covers remind me of the season and kind of going them blind to see if they actually are set in that season. I'll link the video below if you want to see my thoughts on this one and the other books I picked. I was reading this for the fall colors on the cover because, you know, you've got your reds and your oranges and your yellows. And I will say, normally I don't talk about what the books are about or anything about them in my vlogs because I do a vlog where I specifically talk about the books where I kind of wrap up my fall covers or whatever season I'm in. But I will say about this one is there is a creepy, spooky house in here. So there you go. Checked off my atmospheric building in this one without meaning to. So I think it makes up for the fact that this didn't really give me those vibes. And this one checks off my fall covers. So that is the cozy path. Then I went and fulfilled the second prompt for the spooky path, and I believe it's Witches or Magic? I think it's Witches and Magic, and I read The Witches of Moonshire Manor. I'm giving this book 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I wasn't sure I was going to based on the beginning, but basically we're following this coven of witches who are behind on payments for their house, and the males in the town are trying to steal it out from under them. And each of the witches has a different magical power. So like Ursula, for instance, can read tea leaves and tarot cards and see the future. Whereas Ivy is really good with plants and stuff like that. So they each kind of have their specialties. And we're kind of seeing what's going on. And one of their coven, Ruby, is about to return. And we don't know where she's been or why she's been missing. And what is going on with that. And there's a lot of drama in this book that I wasn't expecting. And this is really about the bond these women share, how they came to be where they are. These women are in their 80s too, so it's really interesting to see characters of that age and a story about women of that age being told. I really enjoyed the book. I'm actually kind of sad because I think it's a standalone and I would love to see more of these witches and their world and their magic and the characters we meet along the way and things like that. But that being said, I thought it was an enjoyable read and I'm very glad that I picked it up because it, like I said, it started off a little rough and I wasn't sure I was going to like it. But by the end, it won me over and I really grew to care about these women and their journey and wondered what happened to bring them to the events that we're seeing in present day. It was just a really enjoyable read. So the only other update I have is that I have restarted Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So if you watched some of my other vlogs, you know that I had started reading this, but I ended up requesting the physical copy from the library because I was reading the ebook and there are footnotes in this book. And here is one of those footnotes. It starts there and goes all the way to the bottom. Now in the ebook, to access said footnote, it would be here in the text and you need to flip to like here. There's no way I was doing that with the ebook. So it switched to a footnote. I'd have no idea how long the footnote was and there'd be no indication that we had hopped back into the main story. So I was struggling because I would end up tuning it out because I couldn't focus on the words because the words were wrong, but then I wouldn't realize the words had picked back up. And so I requested the physical copy and started over. So I'm only a chapter into this. I'm hoping to get to it because I think I only have the audiobook left for like a week and it's a long audiobook and I don't want to read this physically without an audiobook. So we'll see if I can get to it. My next books for the to pass are Broomsticks and Brownies and Broomsticks. I said that backwards. And Dead Voices. I believe this is for spooky or thriller or scary or thriller or something like that for the spooky path. And then this, I believe, is cozy vibes, and nothing gives me cozy vibes quite like a cozy mystery. So I think that's where I'm at with the prompts. Again, I will try to remember to make a note next time I go to film. But these are the next two books I'm going to be reading. I've heard this one is really spooky, even though it's middle grade, so I will not be reading that tonight. I will be focusing on this one. And I'm very excited to get to it because I've been in a cozy mystery mood, and, well, I did not add enough of them to my TBR this month. So I'm very excited to be reading that and getting to check that out. So hopefully I will love it. But yeah, that is my first check-in. And I will hopefully check back in when I have some more read. I'm actually getting very close to being done because once I finish these two, then I have 2 more prompts for each path and then the double one. So I'd only have 3 books left. So hopefully it won't take me too long. And then hopefully I can get back to the rest of my TBR because I have a hefty stack I need to read, and I get the feeling that board ain't going to be nice to me in November, so I don't want any punishment. So we'll see, and I will check back in with you all soon. So it is now Thursday, and I'm finally sitting down to check in. I kept meaning to film this, and things kept getting in the way. Mostly was the fact that Monday, one of my cats had a vet visit and decided to bite me. So I have a nice little bite on my thumb. You can see the little puncture wound there, and she got me back here, right there. I don't know. And I have a couple more here and like a little one down here and a little one here. She really took a chunk of me. She did not want to go in that cat carrier. So I spent a couple days kind of nursing that. Today is the first day it's felt kind of normal. Like every other day it hurt to even go like that. So I'm finally sitting down to check in. It's been a very, very busy day. And I have completed my Foxenwood Academy Fall Readathon TBR, Lexie's Readathon's TBR. I don't remember in the last clip if I told you, but I finished The Witches of Moonshire Manor and I'm going 4 stars. I ended up really enjoying that. It was a little slow to start. Took me a little bit to get attached to the characters. But once I did, I really, really enjoyed it. And we're following a group of witches who I want to say are in like their 70s or their 80s and are about to have their property taken from them, like their house. And they have to figure out a way to come up with some funds. And it is a very interesting, quirky, kind of cozy fantasy mystery. It is also a standalone, which sucks because I got really attached to the characters, so I would have liked to see more from them going forward, but yeah, it was overdue at the library, so I don't have it to hold up. And I did that for Witches/Magic. Then the next prompt for the Cozy Path was to read a book that gave you cozy vibes or something to that effect, and I chose Brownies and Broomsticks because cozy mysteries tend to give me cozy vibes. This is the first book in a new series, and we're following Katie, who is moved to the town her aunt and uncle live in to help them run the brand new bakery that they've opened, and once there, soon learns that her aunt is a witch, and so is she. A murder ends up happening outside of their bakery, and her uncle is the prime suspect, so she has to figure out a way to clear his name. I'm going 3.5 stars on this. I did not enjoy it as much as I was expecting to. There were some characters I really didn't like, and I don't know if they'll be in the books going forward, and I don't know if I will grow on them if they are. And I own the second one, so I will probably at least give the second one a try, but if I feel kind of meh about the second one too, then I will probably not continue on with the series. But Katie is an interesting character, and I like her discovering her magic. And I like her trying to come to terms with the fact that her aunt is informing her at this late date that she is a witch. But there, like I said, there were some characters I'm not so sure about. And if I have to continue to read about them, it might not be a series for me. But it is still a cozy mystery, and it gives me all of those cozy vibes. So it definitely fulfilled the prompt in that sense. It just wasn't my favorite book. Then for the spooky path, we had to read, I want to say, a thriller or a spooky book. And for this, I read Dead Voices by Catherine Arden. This is the second book in this series. It's the sequel to Small Spaces. And in this one, we're dealing with like ghosts and a snowstorm that knocks out the power. So it's very, very, very creepy. I ended up giving this book 4.25 stars, and it was definitely spooky. It definitely creeped me out. And it's probably the threshold for what I can handle for middle grade horror. I'm still really, really liking this series because it definitely gives me those spooky, spooky vibes that I'm going for. And I also think it's suggestive. Like, the first book is about scarecrows, and I didn't find that as scary as this one, but like ghosts and the thought of ghosts and the thought of like malevolent ghosts definitely freaks me out. So this one definitely upped the spook factor, but I can see how these books might be more tailored to whether you thought those things were spooky too, especially as an adult going into it. So I really enjoyed this installment and getting to have that spooky vibe, and it was definitely what I was going for because I'm very much in a spooky, spooky mood. So very much enjoyed this. Definitely will continue on with this series. Then, my next prompt for the Cozy Path, I believe, was Set in Fall, and I read Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. This follows 2 high schoolers who are on the verge of graduating and are heading to college next year, and this is their last year working at a pumpkin patch together, and we kind of follow their last shift and what they choose to do on the last day that they'll be employed at the pumpkin patch, because next year, they'll be off to college. And this is, like, right before Halloween, so definitely Set in Fall, and I gave it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. It was just a really cute little graphic novel. It was a quick read. Definitely gives you those fall vibes, though I can say I don't think I've ever been to a pumpkin patch. Not something I think I've ever done. Not something I can picture myself doing. But yeah, it was really, really cute and definitely had fall vibes, which was really nice. So, I mean, in a completely different way than this. I mean, like I said, this had a snowstorm, so it wasn't really fall vibes. It was more winter vibes in that sense. But like, I tend to reach for certain things, and that's like cozy mysteries, spooky books, or books that definitely feel fallish, and this one is set smack dab in fall with a lot of things you would associate with fall. So if you're looking for something like that and a graphic novel, I would highly recommend this because it was really enjoyable. And then the next prompt for the spooky path was to read a book with monsters in it, and I read The Monsters of Brookhaven, and I'm giving this one 4.5 stars. So in this book, we're following Mirabelle, and she's part of this really weird family, and they live at this manor, and these two kids show up, and it kind of creates a lot of issues because people shouldn't be able to find their manor, and yet these two do. Everybody at the manor is a monster, and they kind of have this pact with the town that they live in that, like, they will stay at the manor and on the manor grounds. So when these two human kids show up, it becomes a bit of a kerfuffle. And it is such a fascinating read, and I'm really glad it's a series because I grew really attached to these characters throughout this book. I really enjoyed the vibes and the way the author went about telling the story about how these characters who live in the manor in Rookhaven are monsters, but showing a different side to them and not depicting them as monsters in the way that you might expect. And I liked getting to see how all of the characters kind of learned lessons throughout the book and learned to kind of look at things in a different manner and approach things from a different point of view. I thought this was a really, really well done novel, and it wasn't one that was on my radar before this readathon, so I'm really glad it was suggested for the prompt of monsters, and that I picked it up because I really, really loved it. And then the last prompt for both paths is where they meet up, and you need to read a book with a ghost, and I read Ghost of a Gamble by Sue Ann Jafarian, and this is the fourth book in the Granny Apples mystery series, and in this series we're following Emma, who has the ability to communicate with and see ghosts, including one of her many times removed great-grandmother, Granny Apples. I've really, really enjoyed this series. I'm giving this book 4 stars. In this one, she is dealing with the ghost of a mobster who is looking for the money that he and another, like, mobster coworker stole, and he hasn't been able to find in his alive life, so he's hoping after he's dead he can kind of locate it. I really, really love the series and how they kind of use the ghosts, because we see ghosts all throughout this book, and it was a very good excuse to pick up the series because I tend to forget about it because I own it on ebook. So it's not something that comes to mind, but when I saw the prompt and I was thinking about it, this book popped into my head, so I was so excited to get back to this series. And yeah, I really enjoy the series and the vibes, and it's got that cozy fall, kind of spooky, but not really, perfect for a chicken like me kind of vibe. So very, very happy that I picked this one up. So that is the end of my Foxenwood TBR. I managed to complete all of the books that I wanted in record time. I think I could have filmed this like Monday or Tuesday, but again, my thumb, there was no way of filming that. But since then, I've also read some other stuff. I decided to DNF Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell because legitimately every single time I picked up this book, I fell asleep. Or felt like I was going to fall asleep. It was consistently putting me to sleep. So yeah, I just don't think I'm going to read it because it got to the point where every single time I would think about picking it up, I would start to feel tired. And it wouldn't matter how much sleep I had gotten the night before, what time of day it was, how long it had been since I'd slept, how tired I felt prior to thinking about this book. Legitimately, every single time I did anything with this book, I started to feel tired and like I needed to go to sleep. So I'm DNFing it. Maybe someday I'll come back to it. Maybe I was just picking it up when I'm in the wrong headspace and at the wrong time, but it's definitely not happening right now. Then after I finished the readathon, I decided to keep with the spooky vibes, and I picked up The Creakers by Tom Fletcher. And this book is getting 4.5 stars. So this is a middle grade, and we're following Lucy, who wakes up one day and all of the grown-ups are missing. Like, she realizes her mom's missing, but then she realizes that all of the grown-ups in her town are missing. And she soon discovers that there are these creakers that live under her bed, and they may have something to do with the disappearance of all the grown-ups, and she has to figure out how to get them back. So this was far more cute for me than spooky, but I can also see how a younger middle grader would find this kind of spooky. I just found it humorous. So yeah, I really enjoyed Lucy and getting to see how Lucy kind of went about this insanity of all of the grown-ups are gone, and seeing how all of the kids in the town went crazy, because with no grown-ups, it meant they could do whatever they wanted. They could jump on their beds. They could eat ice cream for breakfast. They could run down the streets in their pajamas and swim in the fountain and do all of the things that their parents told them they couldn't do. And Lucy isn't necessarily like that. She kind of likes the order. So she is the one who really quickly realizes that the parents need to come back and that they need grown-ups, and sets out to try to figure that out. And she quickly enlists the help of Norman, who is a scout that lives near her. So it was just a really, really cute, interesting book, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it is definitely one that I think the young ones in my life would enjoy, so I'm very excited to recommend it to them / their parents, because I just thought this was a really great book. And Tom Fletcher is also the one who wrote The Christmasaurus, and if you've read The Christmasaurus, it's kind of the same vibes, just more of a Halloween theme with like these creakers who sneak out from underneath your bed and try to be a little bit spooky. So just to give you an idea, it's in the same kind of writing style vein as The Christmasaurus, and yeah, really enjoyable read, and kind of continued that spooky middle grade vibe I was going for, though it was more cute than spooky. Then I finished A Pinch of Phoenix. I had started this for the Wacky Witches Readathon and did not get all the way through it. This is the third and final book in the Mystic Cooking Chronicles, and I'm going 4 stars. I think this is probably my favorite book in the series. In this series, we're following Leilu, who is one of the youngest chefs ever. She's graduated cooking school and is working in this restaurant underneath a master chef, and is hoping to one day become a master chef herself, and usually has to go on some kind of adventure where she is going after some magical being which she needs for cooking ingredients for her restaurant. And there's a lot of other stuff going on because they're scientists and elves, and they don't always get along. So there's some political stuff going on in the background too that she kind of gets swept up in. I really enjoyed the way this series concluded. I kind of liked how they wrapped up Leilu's story and put a nice little bow on it. I like how it kind of came full circle, which I can't really explain because, like, it would be spoilers, but I kind of like how it kind of circled back around to stuff from the first book. This was just a very intriguing book and an enjoyable series. It's not a new favorite series or anything like that, but it was an enjoyable read, and I'm glad that it came out of my TBR jar to make me read it for the month of October. And again, another series off my list. I will always take that. Then, because again, I've done an insane amount of reading, I picked up The Endless Lake. This is book 5, I believe, in the Survivor series, the first arc anyways. And in this series, we're following a lone dog named Lucky who is trying to survive after a big growl destroys the town that he lives in, and all of the humans leave for unknown reasons, and he's got to figure out how to make it on his own and deal with other dogs, some of which who were already in pack already, and others who used to be leash dogs and had humans, and kind of navigate the craziness that is going on post the big growl, which I believe is like a giant earthquake. I'm giving this book 4.25 stars. I think this is easily my favorite in the entirety of the first arc. This hasn't been my favorite Aaron Hunter arc, but I'm very, very curious to find out what happens in book 6 and how this arc kind of wraps up, because there has been some interesting things going on, and there were some twists in this one I was not expecting. So I'm very excited to finish the series. Well, this arc, because there is an arc 2 that I'm hoping to get to next month, but we'll see. But 4.25 stars is, I think, easily the highest I've given one of the books in the series. And I tore through it in one night, which should also say something. So very, very curious to see how this series wraps up. Well, the arc. I keep calling it a series. You'd think I would know by now that Aaron Hunter does arcs. I've read enough of them in the Warrior series. And then the last update I have for you, because there is one more update, I started Spies in St. Petersburg, which I think is the third series that came out of my series to continue jar. This is the second book in the Taylor and Rose series, which is a spin-off series of the Sinclair mystery series. So I don't really want to say too much, but I will say that one of our main characters went to St. Petersburg on a spying mission and hasn't been heard from, and one of our other main characters is planning on going after them to see what's up, while also technically on a completely separate mission to Hamburg, Germany. And these are like historical mysteries, and I think we're around World War I or World War II. I would look it up, but I don't actually own the book. I'm reading the ebook. I don't know which one, but I definitely think it's wartime, though I don't know which one off the top of my head. But it is definitely a historical mystery, and I'm really enjoying the way this book has started and kind of the intrigue of we're seeing the main character that's in St. Petersburg, and we have no idea when the things that are happening to the character in St. Petersburg are happening, whether they are before or after the other main character finds out that they haven't been heard from in a while. So it's very intriguing to realize that we're finding out what happens to this character in St. Petersburg, but we don't know whether it's current day, so they're fine, or we're getting to see the lead up to why they haven't checked in and why nobody's heard from them. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm like 60 pages in, so I've made quite a dent in this one, and hopefully I will be able to wrap it up pretty quickly, which would mean for my TBR that I want to get through because of certain goals. I need to read book 6 in Survivors, that arc. I need to read the first 2 books in the second arc of 6 in Seekers. I need to finish the Sunbearer Trials. I need to start and finish CC Rios and the Desert of Souls, because I need to finish this and CC to finish my Phase 10 TBR for October, and that is like high priority. And then I need to finish The Shadow of What Was Lost, because I have book 2 on my TBR for Phase 10. I filmed that today. So I kind of have to get to this one, like, ASAP. And then I also need to go back to the Tall Tales Secret Book Club, because I was going to DNF that book, but I pulled Try Again Author, so I'm going to read the second book in that series as my Try Again Author, because I'm not really enjoying the first one. So my idea is that I'll finish the first one and then read the second one, and that'll be me trying the author again and seeing if maybe the second book irons out some of the issues I had with the first book. We'll see. I'm not sure. I don't have high hopes for it, but who knows? I've been surprised before. Sometimes it is just figuring out what works and what doesn't and establishing your world. So maybe it'll all go out well. But yeah, that's all the update I have for you. This vlog is running through tomorrow night, so I will probably have more because I plan to read between now and then. I really enjoyed being part of Lexie's Readathon, and I look forward to whatever prompts we have for the winter version, because this was a lot of fun and definitely made me pick up books that I wouldn't have necessarily gotten to right now or maybe ever. Like, this wasn't on my radar. Neither of these were ones that I was planning on picking up. Like, I'd heard good things about this, but wasn't necessarily planning on reading it. Had never even heard of this before the readathon. I mean, this one was sitting on my shelves. This one I absolutely was planning on reading. I was planning on reading Watch Hollow because it's one of my fall covers, but I wasn't planning on reading Witch Girl when I did. I was planning on getting to The Witches of Moonshire Manor, so I would have read that either way. I definitely think it brought to attention some books that I didn't necessarily plan to read. Oh, Ghost of a Gamble, that's another one that, like, I plan to read it, but I tend to forget about it. So this readathon was really good for forcing me to look at my TBR and go, okay, what do I have that can fulfill these prompts? Or hearing about books like this that I hadn't heard of that sounded really good and fit the, like, spooky fall middle grade vibes I was going for. So very glad I participated in that. And now to see what I can read before the end of Friday, which is, that's when the readathon was. That's why you're getting this vlog from Friday through Friday. And then I'll have a weekend one to wrap up October. So we'll see how much I can read in the next, like, 36-ish hours now, because it's Thursday and I'll only have till midnight tomorrow. So we'll see. And I will check back in with you all soon. So it is now officially Saturday, and it is time to wrap this vlog up. I did not get anywhere near as much reading done between Thursday and Friday as I had hoped. So basically, Thursday in the early hours of the morning before I went to bed, I had read The Endless Lake, and I'd managed to get to page 42 of Spies in St. Petersburg. That is all the reading I did Thursday. After I updated you, I never ended up picking anything up. And then today, I believe, only read before I went to bed. So, I managed to read like another 40 pages of Spies in St. Petersburg. I'm still enjoying it. I'm very curious as to what's going on and how things are going to wrap up there. I believe if memory serves, they mentioned something about it being like 1911. I'll put the date on the screen. I know they mentioned what year we're in. So that gave me context to where it was. I think we're getting ready, if my memory is right about World War I, we're headed towards World War I, but we're not there yet. Because I think I did mention in the last clip that I would try to remember that. The only other update I have is that I've started Cece Rios and the Desert of Souls, and I'm on page 88. In this book, we're following Cece, and there are these creatures known as criaturas. I might not be saying that right. And they live in a town that has to kind of avoid them and keep them back. And one of them, called El Somberon, ends up taking Cece's sister, and Cece decides that she's going to become a bruja, which is very frowned upon in her family and her lineage, because brujas are humans who capture and control criaturas, and they consort with the spirits, and brujagerie is a terrible crime. So they very much view brujas as not a good thing to be, but the only way Cece can get her sister back is if she becomes one. So she sets off to do just that so that she can rescue her sister. So far, I'm really, really enjoying this. I like Cece. I like getting to explore the world and learn more about these criaturas and see more about how brujas work. I'm hoping we get more of that as this goes forward. And I do think it delves into it being mythology with the creators and stuff like that. So very much enjoying this book, and that is the only update I've got. So very, very short update. Like I said, I did not get as much reading done in the last 2 days as I wanted to. However, I do think it was an extremely successful reading week, considering I got through all of the books I wanted to get through for the first readathon that Lexie hosted, and then some. So yeah, all in all, it was a very good reading week, and I'm happy with the progress I've made. So I'm going to end this vlog here since I've updated you on everything. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me fox emojis in honor of Lexie's Patreon. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!